What if Luffy had child with Boa, Nami, Robin, and BIGMOM after married? But for Luffy, life had only gotten more complicated. He stood on the deck of the Thousand Sunny, his trademark straw hat resting on his back, held by the string around his neck. At 22 years old, he looked much the same as he always had, same wild black hair, same bright eyes full of mischief and determination, same carefree grin. But there was something different now, a weight of responsibility that hadn't been there before, though Luffy carried it so naturally that most people couldn't even notice it. Luffy! Get down here! Nami's voice rang out from below deck, carrying that particular tone that made even the Pirate King pause. We need to discuss the wedding arrangements. Which wedding? Sanji called out from the kitchen, his voice dripping with barely concealed frustration mixed with grudging acceptance. We've got 4 of them to plan, Luffy groaned, stretching his arms out in that impossible way only he could, wrapping them around the mast several times before snapping back. Do we really need weddings? Can't we just, keep doing what we're doing? Absolutely not. 4 voices rang out simultaneously from different parts of the ship, and Luffy couldn't help but laugh despite himself. How had it come to this? Even he wasn't entirely sure. The path from Pirate King to married man, 4 times over, was not one he'd ever expected to walk. The first union, Boa Hancock. It had started, as so many things in Luffy's life did, with him simply being himself. After the final battle, after the dust settled and the world began to reshape itself around the truth that had been revealed, Boa Hancock had come to him with tears streaming down her face. Not tears of sadness, but of overwhelming joy and relief that he'd survived, that he'd won, that he was still in the world. Luffy, she had said, her voice trembling in a way that made his heart ache, I have waited my entire life for someone like you. I have loved you with every fiber of my being since the day you challenged the world government for a friend, since the day you showed me that strength isn't about dominance but about protecting those you care about. He'd scratched his head, uncomfortable with such heavy emotions as always. Hancock, I'm not asking for anything, she'd interrupted quickly, her pride warring with her vulnerability in a way that was so distinctly her. I know you have your crew, your adventures, your freedom. I would never ask you to give that up. But Luffy, I want to be part of your life. I want to stand beside you, not behind you. I want to help you change this world. And there was something in her eyes, something beyond the infatuation he'd grown accustomed to over the years. It was determination, partnership, and a depth of understanding that caught him off guard. The Kuja pirates are strong, she continued, straightening her back, every inch the Empress. Amazon Lily is a nation that could be your ally in reshaping this world. And she faltered for just a moment, I want to share my life with you, if you'll have me. Luffy had looked at her for a long moment, really looked at her. He saw beyond the most beautiful woman in the world, beyond the warlord of the sea, beyond even the pirate empress. He saw someone who had been enslaved, who had survived, who had built herself into a leader and protector of her people. He saw someone whose dream aligned with his own, a world where people could be free. Okay, he'd said simply, and her eyes had widened in shock. Okay, yeah. You're strong, you're a good person, and you make really good food. He'd grinned at her. Plus, you've always helped me when I needed it. That's what Nakama do, right? And if you want to be more than Nakama, then okay. I trust you. It wasn't a traditional proposal or acceptance. But then again, nothing about Luffy had ever been traditional. The wedding on Amazon Lily had been a spectacle. A pirate king marrying the pirate empress, the world had taken notice. But more than that, it had been a genuine celebration, a joining of 2 crews and 2 peoples who respected strength and freedom above all else. Hancock had cried throughout the entire ceremony, alternating between overwhelming joy and attempting to maintain her regal composure. Luffy had mostly been excited about the feast afterward. The second union, Nami. Nami's path to marriage with Luffy had been so gradual that neither of them had noticed it happening until they were already halfway there. They'd been partners since the beginning, since a small village in East Blue where a girl with a desperate dream had asked a boy with an impossible one for help. They'd been through everything together, every battle, every adventure, every impossible situation. She navigated them through storms both literal and metaphorical, and he'd broken every chain that tried to bind her. It was no Jiko who had pointed it out first, during a visit back to Kokoyashi village after Luffy became Pirate King. You know you're in love with him, right? She'd asked Nami over drinks one evening. Nami had sputtered, nearly spilling her beer. What? Luffy? Don't be ridiculous. He's my captain, he's Luffy. Exactly, Nojiko had replied with an annoying smile. He's Luffy. The man who saved you, who believed in you, who has protected your dreams for years. The man you trust with your life every single day. The man whose smile makes you smile, whose laugh makes you laugh, whose pain hurts you more than your own. Nami had opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. Then opened it again. Then closed it. Oh no, she'd whispered. Oh yes, Nojiko had confirmed. The realization had hit Nami like a tsunami. How long had she loved him? Years? From the beginning? She'd been so focused on her dream, on paying back her debt to him, on being the best navigator she could be for his sake, that she'd never stopped to examine what all those feelings meant. Telling Luffy had been terrifying. Not because she feared rejection, well, not exactly, but because she feared changing what they had. Their dynamic was perfect. What if admitting her feelings ruined everything? She'd cornered him on the sunny one evening as the sun set, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. Luffy, I need to tell you something. He'd looked up from the fishing rod he was holding, giving her his full attention in that way he did when he knew something was important. What's up, Nami? I think I'm in love with you. The words had tumbled out before she could stop them. I don't know when it happened, maybe it was always there, but I realize that you're not just my captain or my friend. You're the person I want to share my life with. You're the person I dream about when I dream about the future. And I know you're already married to Hancock, and I know this is weird, and I don't even know if you... Okay, he'd said, with that same simple acceptance he'd given Hancock. Nami had stopped mid-ramble. Okay, yeah. I mean, you're Nami. You're my navigator. You're the person who's been with me through everything. I trust you more than anyone. He'd smiled at her, that genuine, bright smile that had always made her feel safe. If you want to be married, then let's get married. It's not just about want, Luffy, she tried to explain, though tears were already forming in her eyes. It's about love, about partnership, about... Isn't that what we already have? He'd asked, tilting his head in confusion. We're already partners. We already care about each other. If being married means we make that official, then okay. I like the idea of you being part of my family officially. It was so Luffy, reducing something complicated to its simplest, most honest form. And somehow, that made it perfect. Their wedding had been smaller, more intimate. Just the crew and their closest friends on a small island, with Nami's village watching via Den Mushi. Nami had worn her mother's bracelet, and cried almost as much as Hancock had at her wedding, though for slightly different reasons. Hancock, notably, had attended with remarkable grace, though she'd pulled Nami aside before the ceremony. The Pirate King's heart is vast enough for many, Hancock had said quietly. But betray him, hurt him, and I will show you why I am called the most dangerous woman in the world. I never hurt him, Nami had replied firmly. And if you try to intimidate me on my wedding day, I'll show you why I'm the one he chose to navigate his life. They'd stared at each other for a long moment before Hancock had smiled. A genuine smile, not her usual proud smirk. Good. He deserves strong women around him. She'd paused. Welcome to the family, navigator. The third union, Nico Robin. Robin's marriage to Luffy had been born from a different kind of love, the love of finding home after a lifetime of running. After everything ended, after the void century's truth was revealed and Robin had achieved her dream of sharing that knowledge with the world, she'd felt oddly empty. Not unhappy, she'd accomplished what she'd set out to do, what she'd suffered decades to achieve. But now what? She'd been sitting in the Sunny's library late one night, surrounded by books and papers, when Luffy had wandered in looking for a snack he'd hidden from Sanji. Oh, hey Robin! Can't sleep? Just thinking, she'd replied, watching him search through shelves where no food could possibly be hidden. Luffy, can I ask you something? Sure! He'd given up on his search and plopped down next to her. What do you do when you've achieved your dream? He'd thought about it for a moment, his face scrunched up in concentration. Find a new one, I guess. Or make the old one bigger. I mean, I'm Pirate King now, but that doesn't mean the adventure's over. There's still places to go, people to meet, things to do. Dreams don't really end, do they? They just change. Robin had smiled at that. You're wiser than people give you credit for. Everyone keeps saying that lately. He'd laughed. So what's your new dream, Robin? She'd been quiet for a long time before answering. I think I want a family. A real one, one that lasts. I want to be part of something that isn't just about the past, but about the future too. Luffy had nodded enthusiastically. You already have that. You've got us, I know. But I mean, more than that. I want to build something, create something. I want to raise children and teach them about the world. I want to see them grow and change things in ways I never could. She'd looked at him carefully. Does that sound silly? No way. That sounds awesome. He'd grinned at her. You'd be a great mom, Robin. Would you want to be part of that? Part of building that family? Luffy had looked at her with those clear, honest eyes. With you? Yeah, definitely. You're one of my favorite people, Robin. You're smart and strong and you make everything more interesting. Having a family with you sounds really cool. And that had been that. No grand proposal, no elaborate ceremony. Just two people who understood each other deciding to build something together. Their wedding had been the most unusual of the four, held in a massive library that Robin had commissioned built, filled with scholars and historians from around the world. It was part wedding, part symposium on the Void Century, and entirely perfect for Robin. Hancock and Nami had both attended, and the three women had formed an unlikely alliance. They were so different, the proud empress, the clever navigator, and the scholarly archaeologist, but they shared something important. They all understood what it meant to be saved by Luffy, to be changed by him, to love him in their own unique ways. He's going to be completely overwhelmed by all of us, Nami had commented, watching Luffy try to pay attention to a lecture on ancient architecture while clearly wanting to explore the library's training room. He wouldn't have it any other way, Robin had replied with a knowing smile. He loves being surrounded by strong women. He mostly loves not having to make decisions, Hancock had added dryly, though there was affection in her voice. They'd all laughed at that, and somehow, impossibly it had worked. The fourth union, Charlotte Linlin BIGMOM. This one, Luffy had to admit, had surprised even him. After BIGMOM had been defeated and her empire had crumbled, something unexpected had happened. Instead of complete destruction, something new had emerged from the ashes. Linlin, faced with the consequences of her actions and her failures, had undergone something like a redemption arc, though calling it that seemed too simple for something so complex. She'd sought out Luffy a year after his coronation as Pirate King, arriving with only Prometheus and Zeus, looking smaller somehow despite her massive size. Monkey D. Luffy, she'd rumbled, and there was something different in her voice. Less madness, less hunger, more clarity. I have a proposal. I'm not giving you my desserts, he'd replied immediately, making her crack a genuine smile. Not that kind of proposal, brat. A political one. She'd settled down, making herself as small as someone of her size could. Todo land is broken. My family is scattered, but there are thousands of people, different races, different species, who called my nation home. They need protection, they need leadership, and they need someone who won't make my mistakes. So, not you? Luffy had asked bluntly, making several people around him gasp. But BIGMOM had laughed. No, not me. I had my chance, and I failed them all. But you, Pirate King, you're building a new world. You've brought together people that the world government said could never coexist. You've proven that strength doesn't have to come from fear. What do you want from me? Luffy had asked, suspicious but curious. An alliance. Sealed in the old way, through marriage. She'd held up a hand before he could protest. I know what you're thinking. But hear me out. I'm not talking about love or romance. I'm talking about uniting our peoples, giving my former territories the protection of your name, and your allies. I'm talking about creating a true haven for all races, something I always wanted but was too selfish and mad to properly achieve. That sounds like something I'd want to do anyway, Luffy had pointed out. Why do we need to get married? Because the world understands symbols, Luffy. Because a marriage alliance between the Pirate King and the former Yonko would send a message that the old era is truly over and a new one has begun. Because my children and former crew would accept your leadership if you were family, but might rebel against being simply conquered. It had been Jinbei who had spoken up then. She's not wrong, Luffy. The Sun Pirates have seen this before. Sometimes the symbol matters as much as the substance. And if Big Mom is genuinely offering to help build the world you want, rejecting her just because the method is unconventional would be short-sighted. Luffy had looked around at his crew, at his wives, because by then both Hancock and Nami were already married to him, and finally back at Big Mom. You promise you won't go crazy and start eating people again? I'm working on that, she'd admitted. The hunger pangs are less severe when I'm not constantly stressed about maintaining an empire through fear. And I have therapists now. Good ones? It's actually helping. Big Mom has therapists? Usopp had whispered in disbelief. Will you help me protect everyone? Luffy had asked seriously. Will you use your strength to make people free instead of controlled? Yes. That's what I want to do. What I should have been doing all along. Okay then. Let's get married. The wedding had been a bizarre affair, a massive celebration on what remained of Whole Cake Island, attended by former Big Mom pirates, Straw Hats, Kuja pirates, and people from all corners of the Grand Line. It was less a romantic ceremony and more a treaty signing with cake, but it had been effective. Linlin had surprised everyone by being a surprisingly reasonable spouse. She meant what she said about not wanting romance. She had her own family, her own life. But she'd become a genuine ally, an advisor, and occasionally a terrifying mother-in-law figure to Luffy's other wives. You're all too soft on him, she'd declared after one particularly chaotic family dinner. The boy needs structure. The boy is the Pirate King and save the world, Nami had shot back. I think he's doing fine with chaos. He ate 17 plates of meat in one sitting and then wondered why his stomach hurt, Linlin had countered. That's actually fair, Robin had conceded. Present day, now, standing on the deck of the Sunny with the voices of his 4 wives calling for him, Luffy couldn't help but reflect on how strange and wonderful his life had become. He loved them all, he realized. Not in the same way, perhaps, but genuinely and deeply. Hancock, who had shown him that strength could coexist with vulnerability. Nami, who had been by his side from the beginning and knew him better than anyone. Robin, who shared his love of adventure and discovery in a different but complementary way. And even Linlin, who was teaching him about leadership and responsibility in ways he never expected. Luffy! This time all 4 voices came in unison, and he could feel the ship trembling slightly from Linlin's addition to the chorus. Coming! He called back, laughing. He took one last look at the horizon, at the endless ocean that had been his home for so long, and smiled. Being Pirate King was everything he'd hoped for. But being a husband, 4 times over, was turning out to be its own kind of adventure. He stretched his arms and launched himself toward the galley, where he could hear his wives, and probably the entire crew, gathering. What's going on? He asked as he landed in the middle of the group. Nami stepped forward, holding what looked like several schedules. We need to discuss coordination. Hancock's kingdom needs you for a diplomatic meeting next week. I need you to help with a navigation expedition the week after. Robin wants you present for the opening of her new research facility. And Linlin. I'm pregnant, Linlin announced casually, causing complete silence to fall over the room. Luffy blinked. Oh. Cool, cool? Sanji screamed. That's all you have to say? Is that not the right response? Luffy asked, confused. Actually, Hancock spoke up, her face slightly flushed. I am as well. More silence. Me too, Nami added quietly. As am I, Robin finished calmly, though there was a smile playing at her lips. Luffy looked around at all 4 of his wives, his brain slowly processing this information. Then, slowly, his face broke into the widest grin anyone had ever seen. Really? All 4 of you? That's awesome. We're going to have 4 babies? This is the best day ever. We're doomed, Usopp whispered to Chopper. 4 children of Luffy. The world is doomed. I think it's wonderful. Chopper said, already crying happy tears. 4 heirs to the Pirate King, Zoro said thoughtfully. That's going to make things interesting. Interesting is one word for it, Frankie added. Those kids are going to be super powerful. Brooke was already composing a song about it, his violin appearing from nowhere. Luffy, meanwhile, had moved to each of his wives, hugging them enthusiastically and babbling about how great this was going to be, how strong their kids would be, how he couldn't wait to play with them and teach them about adventure. You're going to need to be more responsible, Nami said, though she was smiling. Children need stability, structure, they need someone who will let them be free, Luffy interrupted, and there was a seriousness in his eyes that reminded everyone why he was the Pirate King. They need someone who will protect their dreams, no matter what. And they need to know they're loved. I can do that. Hancock felt tears welling up in her eyes again. You beautiful, simple, perfect man. I'm not that simple, Luffy protested. I know lots of stuff. Name 3 things, Nami challenged. Meat is good, adventures are fun, and my nakama are the best. He grinned triumphantly. I stand corrected, Nami said dryly, but she was laughing. Robin approached him, placing a hand on his shoulder. Luffy, do you understand what this means? For children, all connected to you and to us. They'll inherit your will, your strength, your dreams. They'll change the world. Good, Luffy declared. That's what they should do. Everyone should get to change the world. The world government won't be pleased, Linlin pointed out. 4 children carrying the will of D, with the blood of the Pirate King and 4 of the most powerful women in the world, they'll see them as threats. Let them try something, Hancock said coldly, her eyes flashing with protective fury. I will personally turn anyone who threatens my child to stone. Our children will have the protection of Weatheria, the Sky Island Technologies, and every ally I've made across the seas, Nami added firmly. They'll have knowledge, history, and the truth on their side, Robin stated. I'll make sure they understand the world they're inheriting, and they'll have the strength of Totoland's former empire and my experience, Linlin finished. Plus, they'll have the entire Straw Hat crew as aunts and uncles. Damn right they will, Zoro said, speaking for everyone. Luffy looked around at his family, his crew, his wives, the family he'd chosen and the family he was building, and felt something swell in his chest. Pride, joy, excitement, and maybe a little bit of fear, though he'd never admit that last part. We're going to need a bigger ship, he said finally. Everyone groaned, but they were all smiling. That night, after the celebrations had died down and most of the crew had gone to bed, Luffy found himself on deck again, looking up at the stars. He wasn't alone for long. One by one, his 4 wives joined him, each settling into a comfortable position around him. They didn't speak for a long time, just existing together in the peaceful night. Finally, it was Robin who broke the silence. Are you scared? Luffy thought about it honestly. A little. Being a dad is probably harder than being Pirate King. Definitely harder, Nami agreed. But you'll be good at it, Hancock said softly. You'll be good at it because you'll love them unconditionally, because you'll let them be themselves, because you'll fight the whole world for them if you have to. Just like you did for all of us, Robin added. We'll help, Linlin said. I wasn't always a good mother, but I learned. I know what not to do, at least. And I want to be better for this child. For all these children. We're in this together, Nami confirmed. All of us. It's going to be chaos. When has that ever stopped us? Luffy grinned. They sat together under the stars, the 5 of them, planning for a future that was rushing toward them faster than a ship in a storm. For women who had loved the same man in different ways, who had chosen to build something impossible together, and one man who had somehow managed to unite them all through nothing more than being genuinely, authentically himself. What if they don't get along? Hancock asked suddenly, voicing the worry that had been on all their minds. What if our children fight each other? Compete for, they'll be siblings, Luffy interrupted simply. They'll fight sometimes, yeah? But they'll also protect each other. They'll be nakama. I'll make sure of it. How can you be so certain? Robin asked. Because they'll be our kids, Luffy said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. They'll have all of our best parts. Your strength, Hancock. Nami's intelligence. Robin's wisdom. Linlin's power. And maybe a little bit of my stubbornness. A little bit? All 4 women said simultaneously, then laughed. Okay, a lot of my stubbornness, Luffy conceded. But that's good. Being stubborn means not giving up on your dreams. It means fighting for what's right even when everyone says you're wrong. That's the most important thing I can teach them. That and how to throw a proper punch, Linlin added approvingly. And navigation, Nami insisted. And the importance of knowledge and learning, Robin contributed. And the value of loyalty and love, Hancock finished. Luffy beamed at all of them. See? They're going to be amazing because they'll have all of you as moms. I'm just the fun dad who teaches them how to fight and find adventure. You're more than that, Nami said gently, taking his hand. You're the person who showed each of us what we could be. You're the person who never gave up on us, never stopped believing in us. That's what you'll give to our children, the freedom to be themselves and the certainty that they're loved no matter what. The world is going to change again, Robin mused. For children of Monkey D. Luffy, each carrying different bloodlines, different powers, different perspectives, they'll grow up in a world their father freed, and they'll push it even further. Assuming they don't destroy it first, Linlin said dryly. Have you considered the sheer destructive potential of combining our genes with your chaos, Luffy? It'll be fine. Luffy assured her, though his grin suggested he absolutely hadn't considered that, and was now excited about the possibility. We're all going to be gray-haired by the time they're 5, Nami predicted. Speak for yourself, Hancock said, flipping her hair. I am the most beautiful woman in the world. I shall remain flawless, said while pregnant with what is essentially a chaos demon in human form, Robin pointed out. A beautiful chaos demon, Hancock corrected. They dissolved into laughter again, the tension of the evening finally breaking completely. This was their family now, unconventional, impossible, and absolutely perfect for them. As the night deepened and the stars wheeled overhead, the 5 of them made a promise to each other, and to the children who would soon enter the world. They would protect them, guide them, love them, and most importantly, let them be free. Free to choose their own paths, their own dreams, their own destinies. Because that, in the end, was what Monkey D. Luffy had always been about. Not controlling people, not forcing his will on others, but freeing everyone he met to be their true selves. And now he would pass that gift on to the next generation. For children, for mothers, one father, and infinite possibilities. The age of the Pirate King was far from over. If anything, it was just beginning. The chapter ends with Luffy falling asleep right there on the deck, surrounded by his wives, a content smile on his face, and his hand resting protectively on his straw hat. The 4 women exchange glances, shake their heads in fond exasperation, and settle in around him, keeping watch over their sleeping captain and the future they're all building together. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new adventures, and eventually, 4 new lives that would change everything. But tonight they had this moment of peace, this calm before the storm. The first birth came on a stormy night that seemed almost prophetic in its intensity. Nami had gone into labor aboard the Thousand Sunny while they were sailing through the calm belt, because of course the daughter of the world's greatest navigator would choose the most inconvenient timing possible. The irony wasn't lost on anyone, least of all Nami herself, who between contractions was still giving orders about adjusting the sails. Nami Swan, please stop trying to navigate while giving birth, Sanji pleaded, running back and forth with hot water and towels. Someone has to make sure we don't crash. She snapped back, then gasped as another contraction hit. I've got it, Robin assured her calmly, though there was a tightness around her eyes that betrayed her own nervousness. She was due in just a few weeks, herself. Focus on bringing your daughter into the world. Luffy stood by Nami's side, holding her hand and looking more terrified than he'd ever been facing any enemy. Is it supposed to hurt this much? Can I fight the pain? Where is it? I'll punch it. You can't punch labor, you idiot. Nami screamed, squeezing his hand hard enough that even with his rubber body, he felt it. Chopper, in his full doctor mode, was a picture of professional calm despite his young age. Everything is progressing normally. Just a little longer, Nami. Hancock and Linlin waited outside, both at various stages of their own pregnancies. Hancock, 6 months along, paced anxiously, her usual composure cracking. She shouldn't be suffering like this. There must be something. It's childbirth, Linlin said flatly, her hand resting on her own swollen belly. She was due soon as well, within a month. It hurts. That's nature. But Nami's strong. She'll be fine. How can you be so calm about this? Hancock demanded. Because I've done it before. 35 times before, actually. Linlin's expression softened slightly. Though I'll admit, this one feels different. This one I'm actually nervous about. Maybe because I'm actually sober and sane this time. The storm outside intensified, rain lashing against the ship, lightning splitting the sky. And then, cutting through the sound of thunder, came another sound, the sharp, indignant cry of a newborn baby. It's a girl, Chopper announced, tears streaming down his face as he carefully cleaned the infant and wrapped her in a soft blanket. Luffy stared down at the tiny being in Chopper's arms, his eyes wide with wonder. She's so small. Is she supposed to be that small? All babies are that small, Luffy, Nami said weakly, exhausted but smiling as Chopper placed the baby in her arms. The infant had a tuft of orange hair, already showing signs of her mother's vibrant coloring, and when she opened her eyes, they were dark like her father's but with a sharpness that was pure Nami. As if on cue, the storm outside began to calm, the clouds parting to reveal moonlight. She already has an effect on the weather, Robin observed with fascination. Remarkable. What are you going to name her? Luffy asked, gently touching his daughter's tiny hand. She immediately grabbed his finger with surprising strength. Nami looked down at her daughter, at the miracle she and Luffy had created, and smiled through her tears. Sora. Her name is Monkey D. Sora. Wait, Usopp said from the doorway where most of the crew had gathered to peek in. Isn't Sora the name of Sanji's mother? Nami confirmed, glancing at the cook who had tears streaming down his face. A woman who sacrificed everything for her children's freedom. It seemed appropriate. Sanji turned away, openly sobbing. Nami Swan, you beautiful, thoughtful angel. Actually, Robin said softly, I was planning to use that name myself. There was a moment of awkward silence before both women looked at each other and laughed, a slightly hysterical, exhausted laugh. We're going to have to coordinate baby names now too? Nami asked. Apparently, Robin replied, shaking her head. How about this? You keep Sora for your daughter. I had another name in mind as well. Which is? Robin's hand rested on her own pregnant belly, and her smile turned mysterious. You'll see soon enough. 3 weeks later, Amazon Lily. Boa Hancock's labor was, in contrast to Nami's, a carefully orchestrated affair held in the heart of Amazon Lily with the best midwives in the Kuja tribe in attendance. Not that it made it any less painful or terrifying. The pirate empress does not scream, Hancock insisted through gritted teeth, her face pale and covered in sweat. Sister, it's okay to scream, Marigold assured her gently. We've all done it, Sandersonia added. I am the most beautiful woman in the world, Hancock gasped out. I will birth this child with grace and hhhhhhh. So much for grace. Luffy, having been through this once before, was slightly less panicked this time. Slightly. You're doing great, Hancock. Just like when you fight. Push through it. If you ever compare childbirth to combat again, I will turn you to stone. She snarled at him. Yes, ma'am, he replied meekly. Nami, recovered enough to travel, stood to the side with baby Sora sleeping peacefully in her arms. The infant seemed completely unbothered by all the yelling. Robin was there too, now very obviously pregnant herself, offering quiet encouragement. I can see the head, one of the midwives announced excitedly. A few more pushes, Empress. Hancock drew on reserves of strength she didn't know she had, channeling all of her considerable willpower into bringing her child into the world. And finally, after what felt like an eternity, the room filled with the sound of a baby's cry. But this cry was different. It resonated with power, causing the very air to shimmer. Conqueror's Haki, Robin breathed in amazement. From birth, the midwife carefully cleaned the baby and wrapped him in silk before presenting him to Hancock. It's a boy, Empress. A strong, healthy boy. Hancock looked down at her son, at the child she'd created with the man she loved, and burst into tears. He was perfect, with her delicate features but Luffy's infectious energy already visible in how he moved. His hair was black like his father's, and when he opened his eyes, they were a striking combination, dark like Luffy's but with the intensity of Hancock's gaze. He's beautiful, Luffy said with genuine awe. He looks like you. He has your spirit, Hancock replied softly, touching her son's face gently. I can feel it. This child will be great, Luffy. Perhaps the greatest of all our children. They'll all be great, Luffy insisted. Because they're our kids. What will you name him? Marigold asked. Hancock looked at Luffy, and something passed between them, an understanding, a shared memory. Ace, she said firmly. His name is Monkey D. Ace. The name hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Named after Luffy's brother, after the man who had given his life to save Luffy, after a legacy of fire and freedom and sacrifice. Ace, Luffy repeated, and his voice was thick with emotion. Yeah. That's perfect. Little Ace chose that moment to grab his father's finger, just as Sora had done, but when he did, a wave of Conqueror's haki pulsed out from him, weak, unfocused, but unmistakable. Every person in the room felt it, felt the weight of this child's will. He's going to be a monster, Nami observed, not unkindly. In the best way possible. Takes after his parents, Robin added with a slight smile. As the celebration began in Amazon Lily, because the birth of the Pirate King's son was cause for massive celebration, Hancock held Ace close and whispered promises to him. Promises to protect him, to teach him, to help him become everything he was meant to be. Outside, the sky was clear and bright, as if the world itself was celebrating the birth of this new heir to the will of D. 1 month later, the library of Ohara rebuilt. Robin's labor began, appropriately enough, while she was reading a book on ancient birthing practices across different cultures. The irony made her laugh even as the first contraction hit. I suppose there's poetry in this, she said calmly, setting the book aside. Luffy, now a veteran of 2 births, immediately went into what Nami had started calling his baby panic mode. Chopper! Robin's having the baby. Where's Chopper? I'm right here. Chopper called, running in with his medical bag. Robin, how are you feeling? Like I'm about to give birth, she replied dryly. Which, coincidentally, I am. Robin's labor was the calmest of the 3 so far. She breathed through contractions with the same measured composure she brought to everything else, occasionally making observations about the physiological process she was experiencing that made Chopper take notes, even while helping deliver the baby. Nami and Hancock were both present, each holding their own infants. Little Sora was awake and seemed fascinated by everything around her, while Ace slept peacefully despite his mother's nervous energy. You're being remarkably calm about this, Hancock observed with something like admiration. Panic serves no purpose, Robin replied, then gasped slightly as another contraction hit. Though I understand the impulse. Luffy held Robin's hand, and there was something different in how he supported her, a quiet, steady presence that showed how much he'd learned in such a short time. You've got this, Robin. I know you do, she smiled at him gratefully. Thank you for being here. Where else would I be? Hours passed, fewer than with the other births, which Chopper attributed to Robin's exceptional body control and understanding of anatomy. And finally, as the sun set outside the library windows, casting long shadows across shelves of books, Robin gave birth to a son. But something was immediately different about this child. As soon as Chopper cleaned him and checked him over, the infant's skin began to shimmer slightly, and for just a moment, tiny hands sprouted from the blanket he was wrapped in before disappearing again. He inherited your devil fruit powers? Nami gasped. I didn't know that was possible. It shouldn't be, Chopper said, examining the baby more closely. Devil fruit powers aren't genetic. Unless the power has evolved, Robin said softly, looking at her son with wonder. Unless it's become something more than just the fruit. Something passed through bloodline. The baby had Robin's dark hair and delicate features, but Luffy's round face and bright, curious eyes. He didn't cry. Instead, he looked around with an intelligence that seemed beyond his minutes of life, taking everything in. What will you name him? Luffy asked. Robin thought for a long moment, looking at her son, at the child who would carry the legacy of Ohara, of the will of D, of ancient knowledge and new possibilities. Kazuki, she said finally. Monkey D, Kazuki. After a clan that protected knowledge, that fought for truth. It seems appropriate. Kazuki, Luffy repeated, testing the name. I like it. It's strong. He'll need to be strong, Robin said, her voice taking on a more serious tone. All of our children will. The world we've built is better than the one we grew up in, but it's still dangerous. There are still people who fear change, who want to return to the old ways. Then we'll protect them, Hancock said firmly, adjusting Ace in her arms. All of them. Their family. Our children will protect each other, Nami added, looking down at little Sora. We'll make sure of it. As if sensing the importance of the moment, baby Kazuki reached up with one tiny hand, and then another sprouted from his father's shoulder, both grabbing at Luffy's face. Luffy laughed in delight, making funny faces at his son while Robin watched with soft eyes. 3 children now. 3 heirs to the Pirate King. And 1 more still to come. 6 weeks later, Whole Cake Island. Big Mom's labor was, predictably, the most dramatic of all 4 births. The entire island shook when her contractions began. Lightning struck the chateau repeatedly, and the homies, the living objects created by Big Mom's soul fruit, all went into a panic, unsure how to help their creator in her moment of need. Everyone calm down! Luffy shouted at the assembled Charlotte family members who had gathered. She's just having a baby, not dying. Do you have any idea how dangerous it is when Mama goes into distress? Charlotte Perospero asked nervously. Her powers could destroy half the island. Then we'll rebuild it, Luffy said simply. Now someone get Chopper in there and everyone else stop panicking. Inside the room, Big Mom was indeed in distress, but not in the way her children feared. She was crying, great, heaving sobs that shook her massive frame. I wasn't this scared with any of the others, she admitted to Luffy between contractions. But those times I wasn't really there, you know? I was lost in my hunger, in my madness. But now I'm here, I'm present, and I'm terrified I'll fail this child like I failed so many of the others. Luffy, perched on the edge of the massive bed that had been specially made for her, looked up at the woman who could flatten mountains with a thought. You won't fail, he said simply. Because you're here, because you're trying. That's what matters. How can you be so sure? Because you told me you wanted to be better. And you are better. I've seen it. He grinned at her. Plus, the baby will have me as a dad and 3 awesome brothers and sisters. No way we'll let you fail. Big Mom laughed through her tears, and in that moment she looked less like a terrifying former Yonko and more like a woman about to become a mother for the 46th time, but really, for the first time while truly present and aware. The labor was long and difficult, complicated by Linlin's size and the sheer power radiating from both her and the unborn child. But finally, after hours of struggle, a baby's cry filled the room. But this cry was accompanied by a pulse of raw power that cracked the windows and made the walls groan. It's a girl, Chopper announced, struggling slightly with the baby's weight. And she's big. Really big. The baby was indeed larger than a normal newborn, though tiny compared to her mother. She had Linlin's distinctive features but softened, made almost delicate, and when she opened her eyes they were dark like Luffy's. Most surprisingly, she had a small tuft of pink hair. She's beautiful, Linlin whispered, and the gentleness in her voice was something her older children had rarely, if ever, heard. My beautiful little girl. She's huge, Luffy said with open admiration. She's going to be super strong like her parents, Chopper confirmed, having completed his examination. Her bone density is already incredible, and her muscle mass is far beyond a normal infant. She might have inherited aspects of both your enhanced physiques. The baby girl grabbed her mother's finger with both hands and squeezed, causing even Big Mom to wince slightly at the strength. Then she laughed, a real, genuine laugh of pure joy. What will you name her? Nami asked. She, Hancock, and Robin had all come, creating a bizarre but heartwarming scene of the 4 mothers and 3 babies gathering around the 4th birth. Big Mom looked at her daughter, at this child born from an alliance that had become something more genuine, something real. Charlotte D. Linlin, she said. After me, but also different. She'll have the D in her name, like her father. She'll carry both our legacies. Wait, Perospero said nervously from the doorway. You're giving her the will of D? Mama, do you understand what that means? It means she'll be free, Linlin said firmly. It means she won't be bound by my mistakes or my legacy of fear. She'll make her own path. She looked at Luffy. That's what you taught me. That's what I want for her. Charlotte D. Linlin, Luffy repeated, reaching out to touch his daughter's cheek. She immediately turned and tried to bite his finger, making him laugh. She's definitely got your appetite. Terrifying, muttered several Charlotte's siblings in unison. But despite their concerns, there was something almost miraculous about the scene. Big Mom, holding her newest child with a gentleness none of them had thought her capable of, surrounded by the Pirate King and his other wives, each holding their own infants. For children, for mothers, one father, a family built on the most unlikely foundation imaginable. Baby Linlin yawned, showing a mouth that already had small teeth, and settled against her mother's chest. For all her size and strength, she looked peaceful, content. For, Robin said softly, looking around at the gathered infants. For children who will grow up together, who will shape the future. They're so different, Hancock observed. Ace with his conqueror's haki, Sora with her connection to weather, Kazuki with his inherited devil fruit powers, and Linlin with her monstrous strength. That's good, Nami said firmly. Different means they'll complement each other. They'll learn from each other. Assuming they don't kill each other first, Perispero muttered. They'll be fine, Luffy said confidently. They're nakama. They're family. That's more important than anything else. 3 months later, the 1000th Sunny. The Sunny had been modified significantly to accommodate 4 infants, 4 mothers, and one very overwhelmed but enthusiastic father. The nursery took up what used to be storage space, filled with 4 cradles of varying sizes. Linlin's was notably larger than the others. It was chaos. Beautiful, exhausting, incredible chaos. Sora, true to her name and heritage, seemed to create localized weather patterns based on her mood. When she was happy, gentle breezes filled the nursery. When she was upset, storm clouds literally formed above her cradle. Nami was the only one who could reliably calm her, though Luffy's silly faces worked surprisingly well too. Ace was already showing signs of his immense potential. At only 3 months old, he would occasionally release bursts of Conqueror's haki when frustrated, causing weaker-willed people to briefly lose consciousness. Hancock doted on him constantly, treating him like the prince he effectively was, though Luffy kept insisting they let him crawl around and get dirty like a normal baby. Kazuki was the quietest of the 4, but also the most unsettling. Robin would often find him in his cradle surrounded by dozens of small hands that had sprouted from the walls and ceiling, all waving gently as if exploring the world around him. His eyes tracked everything with an intelligence that seemed far beyond his age. Robin taught him constantly, reading to him in multiple languages, showing him maps and diagrams even though he couldn't possibly understand them yet. Or could he? And Linlin. Baby Linlin was already the size of a 1-year-old despite being only 6 weeks old. She ate constantly, had destroyed 3 cradles already through sheer strength, and seemed capable of lifting objects that should have been far beyond any infant's capabilities. But she was also, surprisingly, the gentlest of the 4, when she wasn't hungry. She rarely cried, instead making curious cooing sounds as she examined her surroundings. I don't understand how you're managing this, Vivi said during a visit to the ship. She'd come to see the children she'd heard so much about. 4 infants with superpowers, 4 mothers with their own very different parenting styles, and Luffy being Luffy. We're not managing, Nami said honestly, bouncing a fussy Sora while simultaneously trying to keep Linlin from eating one of the ship's railings. We're surviving. There's a difference. It's actually fascinating from a developmental perspective, Robin said, making notes while Kazuki sprouted hands all over her body, exploring. Each child is exhibiting abilities far beyond normal infant development. The question is how much of this is genetic and how much is environmental. Does it matter? Hancock asked, carefully filing Ace's tiny fingernails while he babbled happily. They're extraordinary because they're ours. Everything matters when we're talking about the future, Big Mom said, entering the nursery with bottles of milk, several gallons worth for her daughter alone. These children will face challenges we can't even imagine. The world government will see them as threats. Pirates will see them as targets or tools. We need to prepare them. They're 3 months old, Luffy protested from where he was lying on the floor, making faces at all 4 babies simultaneously, somehow keeping all of them entertained. Can't we just let them be babies for a while? That's the problem, Big Mom replied, though not unkindly. They're not normal babies. Look at them. Everyone looked. Sora was floating slightly above her cradle on a small cloud sheet unconsciously created. Ace had just released another wave of hockey that made the walls creak. Kazuki had sprouted 50 hands and was using them to build a complex structure out of blocks. And Linlin was chewing on a metal bar, leaving teeth marks in the steel. Okay, yeah, Luffy admitted. They're pretty weird. But in a good way. The point is, Big Mom continued, we need a plan. How are we going to raise them? Where? Together or separately? What do we teach them first? Together, all 4 mothers said simultaneously, then looked at each other in surprise. Nami spoke first. They need to know each other. They need to bond. Otherwise they'll just be 4 powerful people who happen to share a father. Agreed, Robin added. Psychologically, having siblings, especially in their unique situation, will be crucial for their development. They should know their family, Hancock said firmly. That they can rely on each other, no matter what. And they'll be stronger together than apart, Big Mom finished. I learned that lesson too late with my own children. I won't make that mistake again. So we're agreed, Luffy said, sitting up. They all grow up together, here on the Sunny, sailing with us. They learn about the world by seeing it, learn about freedom by living it, learn about family by being part of ours. It won't be easy, Vivi warned. Raising 4 children with your lifestyle, with the dangers you face. When has anything we've done been easy? Nami countered with a grin. Fair point. As if to punctuate the decision, all 4 babies suddenly cried out at once, but not in distress. In excitement. Because Luffy had just pulled out a piece of meat and was pretending to eat it very dramatically, making exaggerated nom-nom sounds. 4 pairs of eyes, dark like their father's but each unique in their own way, watched in fascination. And for just a moment, they weren't 4 individuals with different mothers and different powers. They were just 4 siblings, entertained by their ridiculous father's antics. This is going to be interesting, Zoro said from the doorway, sake bottle in hand. Interesting is one word for it, Sanji agreed, though he was smiling. I'm going to need to expand the kitchen. And the food budget. We'll need more training space, Frankie added, already mentally designing modifications to the ship. And more medical supplies, Chopper said nervously. So many more medical supplies. I should write a song about this, Brooke declared. For little heirs sailing the seas. It's perfect. Usopp was already working on baby-proofing various parts of the ship, though given the baby's abilities, it seemed like a futile effort. We're going to need stronger railings. And walls. And probably a new ship eventually. But despite all the concerns, all the challenges, all the unknowns, there was something beautiful about the scene. The Straw Hat Pirates, the family that had conquered the world together, now embarking on their greatest adventure yet, raising the next generation. Luffy gathered all 4 babies together, somehow managing to hold all of them at once through liberal use of his stretchy limbs. They looked up at him with identical expressions of curiosity and trust, and he grinned down at them with pure joy. You guys are going to be amazing, he told them seriously. You're going to see the whole world, meet incredible people, have the best adventures. And you know what the best part is? The babies, naturally, didn't respond. You get to do it together. You'll always have each other. That's what being family means. That's surprisingly profound for you, Nami said, wiping away a tear. I have my moments, Luffy replied cheerfully. Outside, the sun was setting over the ocean, painting the sky in brilliant colors. The Thousand Sunny sailed on, carrying its precious cargo toward unknown horizons. For children who would change the world. For mothers who would guide them. One father who would protect their dreams. The age of the Pirate King's heirs had begun, and somewhere, in the shadows of the world government's halls, old men in positions of power felt a chill run down their spines. They had let Monkey D. Luffy live, thinking him a manageable threat after achieving his dream. But now he had 4 children. 4 heirs to the will of D. 4 potential revolutionaries who would grow up in a world their father had already turned upside down. We should have eliminated him when we had the chance, one official muttered, staring at the intelligence reports about the births. It's too late now, another replied grimly. Killing him would only martyr him and make his children even more dangerous. We'll have to find another way. What way? I don't know. But we have time. They're only infants. We have years to plan. they would live to regret that assumption. Because while they planned and schemed, for extraordinary children were growing up surrounded by love, adventure, and the unwavering belief that they could be anything they dreamed of being. And dreams, especially the dreams of children who carried the will of D, had a way of becoming reality, whether the world was ready for them or not. Chapter 3. Growing Up in Paradise, 5,000 words. 5 years later, the Grand Line had never seen anything quite like the chaos that followed the Pirate King's children as they grew. Monkey D, Ace, at 5 years old, was already a legend in the making. Tall for his age with wild black hair that never seemed to stay combed, he had inherited his mother's striking beauty and his father's infectious grin. But it was his conqueror's hockey that made him truly terrifying. He could now control it, mostly, releasing waves of willpower that had brought full-grown pirates to their knees. On Amazon Lily, where he spent much of his time, he was treated like royalty. The Kuja warriors adored him, training him in their techniques while Hancock watched with fierce maternal pride. Again! Ace shouted, his small fists raised as he faced off against 3 adult Kuja warriors. His aura flared, black lightning crackling around his body as his conqueror's hockey surged. 2 of the warriors immediately dropped, unconscious. The third, more experienced, staggered but remained standing. Better, Hancock said from her throne, Salome coiled beside her. But you're still telegraphing your intent. A true master can release their hockey without any warning. I'll get there, Ace declared confidently, helping the fallen warriors up. Sorry, Marguerite. Sorry, sweet pea. It's fine, young master, Marguerite said, rubbing her head. You're getting stronger every day. Soon we won't be able to spar with you at all. This was true. Ace's growth was exponential. Beyond the hockey, he was already showing signs of inheriting his father's monstrous strength and durability. He'd eaten a devil fruit 6 months ago, the Tori Tori Nomi, model, Phoenix, a mythical Zoan that had been recovered from a defeated enemy. Now he could transform into a magnificent blue phoenix, his flames healing rather than burning. Mother, when can I visit the others? Ace asked, transforming briefly into his hybrid form, blue flames wreathing his body, giving him phoenix wings. I miss Sora and Kazuki and Linlin. Hancock's expression softened. Soon. Your father is gathering everyone together for the reunion. It's been 3 months since you've all been together. 3 months was the longest they'd been apart. The decision to let the children spend time in their mother's respective domains had been difficult but necessary. Each location offered unique training opportunities and cultural experiences. But the separation was hard on all of them, children and parents alike. I made something for Sora, Ace said, pulling out a crudely carved wooden bird from his pocket. Do you think she'll like it? She'll love it, Hancock assured him, her heart melting. For all his power and confidence, Ace was still a sweet, thoughtful boy who cared deeply for his siblings. Now continue your training, master your hockey, and then we'll work on your phoenix flames. Meanwhile, on Weatheria the Sky Island, Monkey D, Sora sat cross-legged on a cloud, surrounded by meteorological equipment and weather charts that would confuse most adults. At 5 years old she was small for her age, with bright orange hair that she kept in a ponytail and her father's round, curious eyes. But what she lacked in size, she made up for in sheer meteorological genius. If I adjust the atmospheric pressure here, she muttered to herself, making notes with intense concentration, and introduce a cold front from the north, I should be able to create a localized rain shower without triggering a thunderstorm. She held out her hand, and the air around her shimmered. Clouds formed from nothing, darkening as they coalesced. A gentle rain began to fall in a perfect circle around her, while everything outside that circle remained dry. Excellent work, young Sora. Herr Das, the elderly scientist who ran Weatheria, floated over on his own small cloud. Your control continues to improve. At this rate, you'll surpass even your mother's abilities. Mom can navigate through any storm, Sora said seriously. That's way harder than making them. Different skills, both equally valuable. Herr Das adjusted his goggles. Now, shall we discuss the homework I assigned? The atmospheric patterns of the calm belt? Sora's face lit up. While other children might groan at homework, she devoured knowledge like her father devoured meat. I have 17 theories. Want to hear them? She was in the middle of her 8th theory when a small weather ball, a communication device, chimed. Sora grabbed it eagerly. Mom! Nami's face appeared in the projected image, smiling warmly. Hey, sweetie. How's the training going? Great. I made it rain in a circle. And Herdas says I'm getting really good at reading wind patterns. And I've been practicing the thing you taught me about. Breathe, Nami laughed. I'm glad you're doing well. I have news. Your father is calling everyone together. It's time for the reunion. Sora's eyes widened with excitement. Really? I get to see everyone? Ace and Kazuki and Linlin? All of them. We'll pick you up tomorrow. Pack your things and say goodbye to your teachers. After the call ended, Sora immediately began packing, which, given her abilities, meant creating a small whirlwind that gathered her belongings into her bag. She was practically vibrating with excitement. She missed her siblings terribly. Video calls weren't the same as being together, playing together, getting into trouble together. Ace with his serious determination, Kazuki with his quiet intelligence, and Linlin with her surprising gentleness despite her strength. I wonder if they've gotten stronger, she mused to herself, accidentally creating a small thundercloud above her head that crackled with lightning. I've gotten way stronger. I can make 3 types of clouds now, and I can read weather patterns from 50 miles away, and the thundercloud released a small lightning bolt that singed her hair. And I still need to work on my emotional control, she finished sheepishly, patting out the smoke. In the rebuilt library of O'Hara, Monkey D. Kazuki sat in the center of a massive library, surrounded by books in at least 15 different languages. At 5 years old, he was reading at a college level and comprehending at a postgraduate one. He had his mother's dark hair and delicate features, his father's D-shaped smile, and eyes that seemed to see right through people. Currently, he was doing something that would have amazed and horrified most observers. He was reading 7 books at once. His devil fruit power, the enhanced version of his mother's Hana Nomi, allowed him to sprout body parts from any surface. But unlike Robin's power, his had evolved. He could sprout entire duplicates of himself, each one capable of independent thought while remaining connected to his original consciousness. 7 versions of Kazuki sat in different parts of the library, each reading a different book, all processing and integrating the information simultaneously. The original Kazuki sat in the center, eyes closed, absorbing everything his copies learned. Fascinating, Robin said, taking notes as she observed her son. Your ability isn't just physical duplication, it's cognitive duplication. Multiple parallel streams of consciousness, all feeding back to the primary. It gives me headaches sometimes, Kazuki admitted, opening his eyes. The other 6 versions of himself vanished in a shower of cherry blossom petals. Like my brain is too full. That's why we practice meditation, Robin reminded him gently. Your mind is powerful, Kazuki, but even powerful minds need rest. I know. But there's so much to learn. He gestured at the vast library around them. The history of the world, the ancient weapons, the void century, the will of D, devil fruits, hockey, navigation, combat techniques, diplomacy, languages. How can I rest when there's so much I don't know yet? Robin knelt down to her son's level, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. Knowledge isn't a race, sweetie. It's a journey. You have your entire life to learn. But what if something happens and I don't know enough to help? What if someone gets hurt because I wasn't smart enough? Ah. There it was. The real fear beneath the obsessive studying. Robin recognized it intimately. It was her own fear, the one that had driven her for decades. Kazuki, look at me. When he did, she smiled warmly. You are 5 years old. It is not your responsibility to know everything or save everyone. That's what family is for. We help each other, we support each other. You don't have to carry the weight of the world alone, but I'm your son. And Dad's son. Everyone can adjust their expectations, Robin said firmly. You are allowed to be a child. You're allowed to play, to make mistakes, to not have all the answers. She paused. When was the last time you played with toys instead of reading? Kazuki thought about it. Last month? That's too long. Come on. Robin stood, offering her hand. We're going to take a break. We're going to go outside, and you're going to show me that trick you've been practicing. making your copies play tag with each other. Despite his serious nature, Kazuki's face lit up. Really? But I thought we had more studying. The studying can wait. Your childhood can't. They went outside into the gardens that surrounded the rebuilt library of O'Hara, and for the next hour, Robin watched as her son created multiple versions of himself that chased each other around, laughing and playing in a way that reminded her he was still just a little boy, despite his extraordinary abilities. Later that evening, as Kazuki was finally settling down for bed, Robin received the call. "It's time for the reunion," Luffy said, his face filling the den mushy screen. "We're gathering everyone together." "I miss you guys." "We miss you too," Robin replied, glancing at Kazuki, who had perked up immediately at his father's voice. "Dad, I learned 12 new languages. And I can make 15 copies of myself now. And I've been reading about ancient civilizations and I have so many questions about." "That's awesome, Kazuki," Luffy interrupted cheerfully. "You can tell me all about it when we see each other. And maybe we can have a competition, see if you can catch me with all your copies." Kazuki's eyes gleamed with competitive excitement. "I bet I can. We'll see. Oh, and guess what? I'm bringing so much meat for everyone. It's going to be the best party ever." After the call ended, Kazuki could barely contain his excitement. "Mother, how long until we see everyone?" "We leave tomorrow. Can I bring some books to show Ace and Sora and Linlin?" "Of course." "But Kazuki?" Robin smiled at her son. "Maybe also bring some toys. Plan some games. Remember, you're not just scholars and warriors. You're siblings. You're children. Act like it, at least some of the time." Kazuki nodded seriously, but there was a hint of a smile on his lips. He missed his siblings more than he'd admit. Missed Ace's competitive spirit, Sora's cheerful energy, Linlin's quiet companionship. Reading was wonderful, but it was lonely. Tomorrow, he wouldn't be lonely anymore. On Whole Cake Island, Charlotte D. Linlin Jr., age 5, was the size of an average 10-year-old and already stronger than most adults. She sat in the gardens of the Whole Cake Chateau, carefully making flower crowns for the homies, the living objects created by her mother's power. "This one is for you, Randolph," she said in her soft voice, placing a crown of daisies on the rabbit homie's head. "And this one is for you, Noble Croc." The homies cooed with delight, swarming around the giant child who treated them with such gentleness despite her fearsome strength. "Young mistress is so kind," one of them chirped. "So different from Mama in her youth." Big Mom watched from a balcony above, something like wonder on her face. Her daughter was everything she might have been if not for the hunger, the madness, the desperate need to fill the emptiness inside her with food and power. Linlin Jr. was strong, absurdly strong. She'd accidentally destroyed the east wing of the chateau last week during a tantrum over a scraped knee. She could lift objects that weighed several tons. When she got angry, her screams created shockwaves that shattered windows. But she was also gentle, kind, thoughtful. She cried when others got hurt. She shared her food, even when she was hungry. She treated the weakest homies with the same respect as the strongest soldiers. "She's playing with flowers again," Perospero said, joining his mother on the balcony. "Shouldn't she be training? Learning to fight?" "She trains every morning," Big Mom replied. 4 hours of combat practice, 2 hours of hockey training, 1 hour of strategy lessons. The afternoon is hers to do with as she pleases. But she's wasting it on. "She's being a child," Big Mom interrupted, and there was something fierce in her voice. "She's doing what I never got to do. She's being soft, being kind, being innocent." "That's not a waste, Perospero. That's precious." Perospero fell silent, studying his mother. She changed so much in the past 5 years. Therapy, medication, and genuine self-reflection had transformed the raging Yonko into something more stable, more measured. She was still incredibly powerful and dangerous when necessary, but the random violence was gone. The hunger-driven madness was controlled. "You really care about her,"